a virtual meeting. Can I start this meeting with the prayer? We ask for guidance and blessing on this council. May the true needs and well-being of our communities be our concern. Help us who serve as leaders to remember that all our decisions are made in the best interests of the people, culture and environment of the Corangamite Shire. Amen. We acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land around Corangamite Shire, the Eastern Maar and Wadawurrung people. We pay our respects to all Aboriginal elders and peoples past and present. CEO, Mr. Mason, do we have apologies? I think we have one this evening.
Yes, through Madam Mayor, we've got one apology from Councillor Beard.
Thank you, and I believe we have a conflict of interest as well.
Yes, you're correct, Madam Mayor. A conflict of interest has been lodged by yourself in relation to item 9.3, which is the fee relief program.
Thank you, Mr. Mason. Councillors, confirmation of minutes. Minutes have been circulated. Are there any questions of the minutes? And if not, would someone like to move the recommendation that they be confirmed? Thank you, Councillor Vocals. Seconded, Councillor Macon. There's no comments. All those in favour? Carried. We have no deputations or committee reports this evening, so we'll move straight to planning reports. Item 8.1 is planning permit application PP 2021-069, the use and development of land for domestic animal husbandry, dog boarding kennel at 71 Darlington Road, Notuck. I'd ask Mr. Aaron Moyne, who is the Manager of Planning and Building Services, to introduce this item, please. Thank you, Mr. Moyne.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you, I present Council with this report for planning permit application PP 2021-069. The application seeks planning approval for the use and development of land for domestic animal husbandry as a dog boarding kennel. The proposal includes 10 separate kennels to host a maximum of 10 dogs within a larger shed with associated facilities and an external exercise and activity area. Provision of chain link fencing and vegetation landscaping around the perimeter of the site is also included. Notice of the application has been given and Council has received one objection, which raises issues regarding amenity impacts in terms of nuisance and noise and property devaluation. Issues raised in the objection have been reviewed and addressed as part of the planning assessment, and the assessment of the application has been undertaken against the strategic direction and policy of the Corangamite Planning Scheme, which finds that the proposed use and development for dog boarding is appropriate, will not conflict with productive agricultural uses on adjoining lands, and amenity impacts can be managed by way of permit conditions. The proposal presents an opportunity for a small business to commence to provide dog boarding services to the local area. The recommendation is provided before you.
Thank you, Mr. Moyne. Councillors, there's a recommendation there. Would someone like to move the recommendation? Councillor Hickey, do I have a seconder? Councillor Kennedy. Councillor Hickey, would you like to speak to this item, please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's great to see some new activity happening as far as young people taking on an enterprise like this. The Darlington Road is a very busy road. I know that because I travel it a fair bit these days. There are a number of controls that have been overlaid over this planning permit, and it's my opinion that all of those have addressed any concerns that we may have had about the suitability of this planning permit. So it's my pleasure to move that motion.
Thank you, Councillor Hickey. Councillor Kennedy, do you have something to add? You're on mute, Councillor Kennedy.
Pardon? Yes, as Councillor Hickey said, the objectives of the planning scheme are satisfied for this application. And I do respect the concerns of the objector around the noise on the site, but I do believe that those noise concerns have been adequately allayed by the planning controls in place. The structure is going to be located away from the boundaries, and there's going to be planned landscaping. Also, the applicant has a willingness to undertake extra noise mitigation by suggesting a roof be constructed over the facility. I think that enterprise can sit well in that location and provides an opportunity for a new small business, and we're always keen to support that. So I certainly have no problem with this recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kennedy. Councillors, is there further comment on this application? If not, I'll put to the vote. All those in favour? Carried. Item 8.2 is planning permit applications PP 2021 035 and 036. Re-subdivision of land at 47 Bolivar Street and 10 Austin Avenue, Terang. Mr. Moyne.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and through you, I present Council with this report for planning permit applications PP 2021-035 and 036. This report relates to the subdivision of land within an estate to provide for 3 separately disposable lots with access from Bolivar Street and Austin Street. 2 separate applications have been submitted in order to stage the subdivision so the smaller lot on Austin Avenue, can be transferred first as part of an arrangement between parties of the estate. Should both planning applications be approved, the resultant outcomes will be 3 new individual residential lots, providing a house lot on Bolivar Street of approximately 1,000 square metres, a small vacant lot on Austin Avenue of 603 square metres, and a larger battle axe lot with driveway access from Austin Avenue of approximately 5,000 square metres. Notice of the applications has been given, and council has received 4 objections which raise issues regarding stormwater runoff and drainage, road access, privacy, future development, removal of trees and servicing. Issues raised in the objections have been reviewed and addressed as part of the planning assessment. Grounds including privacy and speculation of future development on the land are not within the scope of the assessment for the subdivision and are not supported. All new future development on the land must be designed to comply with building regulations and residential design standards. Assessment of the application has been undertaken, and the proposals both provide an acceptable response to the Corangamite planning scheme, including the purpose of decision guidelines of the general residential zone and strategic direction and policy of the planning policy framework. The proposed subdivision will create private access to land which is currently landlocked, facilitating potential opportunity for future residential development on lots which are an acceptable size and generally consistent with the character of the area. The recommendation is provided before you.
Thank you, Mr. Moyne. So we have 2 recommendations dealing with both applications. So council is someone happy to move both those recommendations? Councillor Kennedy, thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillors? Thank you, Councillor Vogels. Councillor Kennedy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and through you. I must point out that this application is for the subdivision only and is the consideration for our decision today. As explained by Mr. Moyne, any development other than what is before us now would be subject to a separate permit process. The objectives of this application fit very well with the Corangamite planning scheme. We need infill residential development. It is an important component in supporting future township growth in areas which have access to existing services. In Terang, we do have a pressing need for new residential blocks with this ready access to existing services. This application presents an opportunity to free up underutilised landlocked space and to facilitate residential land supply in a desirable area of Terang. It is creating an opportunity for development and population growth and meeting a need for which current demand is unprecedented. It also fits with our strategy to promote Terang as a key residential and service centre in the Shire. There are some neighbours who are not keen for change in the vacant space near their properties, and it is right that they raise their concerns. In this case, I feel the objections relevant to this particular decision have been adequately dealt with by our planning officers or are addressed through the permit assessment process. We need to support this application and grant a permit. The subdivision is a logical and reasonable step, and the lots proposed are in keeping with the character and use of the surrounding area. I support the recommendations which apply conditions that address concerns raised by the objectors, particularly in relation to stormwater runoff, drainage and servicing. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kennedy. Councillor Vogels, do you have anything you'd like to add?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. No, don't think Councillor Kennedy left any gaps to fill in, so I'm good with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Vogels, and I agree with your comments, Councillor Kennedy. I think particularly in that area we've had issues around stormwater management in the past, and I think that it's important that we do have that stormwater management plan in place and get that right, particularly in that area. Councillors, if there's nothing further, I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? That's carried. Moving on to officers' reports. 9.1 is the Small Business Assistance Program Policy, and I'll ask Director of Sustainability, Sustainable Development, Ms. Justine Linley, to introduce this item, please. Thank you, Ms. Linley.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This report proposes to revoke the Small Business Assistance Scheme Program Policy and adopt an updated policy to be implemented in the current financial year 2021-22. The aim of the policy is to encourage businesses, both new and existing, that are located in Corangamite Shire to innovate, adapt or diversify in order to encourage new projects, services and business ideas that will have a positive impact on both the business and more broadly the economic activity throughout the Shire. The first of this version of the policy was adopted by Council in a relatively short period ago in January 2021. However, feedback from that particular program has indicated that we require an expansion of some of the eligible criteria and category. And what we're proposing in this updated version is an expansion of the types of investment projects that could be included, such as investment in new infrastructure for the business, electric vehicle, EV, charging infrastructure, new website point of sale software, new equipment to allow the business to expand, upgrades to the inside of a building, as opposed to the external facade grants program, investment in new technology and the creation of new spaces to allow a business to expand. The changes proposed in the policy are minor and the officer's recommendation is before you.
Thank you, Ms. Linley. And this certainly was a very popular grants program first time round. So I'd certainly encourage small businesses to have a look at the policy. I believe that this grant is going to be opened up very shortly in the next month or so. So encourage businesses to keep an eye out for those advertisements. And there is $80,000 in the budget. So councillors, would someone like to move the recommendation to revoke the previous policy and adopt the new one? Thank you, Councillor Makin. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Hickey. Councillor Makin.
Thank you, and through you, Madam Mayor. This small business assistance grant is great to help those small businesses who are looking at starting new projects and to help rejuvenate their business. Priority will be given to projects that look at new ways to do business, innovate, adapt and diversify, but we are not stopping any small business within the Shire to apply and see what we can do for you. The grant is for a dollar basis up to $5,000, but if businesses were wanting to contribute over to that amount, they are more than willing and able to do that. We encourage it most wholeheartedly. And as Justine Linley pointed out before, the things that that we are including are the EV charging stations, and I really think this is something that small businesses can really get on board and think about putting them into their businesses and making it a point of difference so visitors can come and visit us. So I'm looking forward to see what businesses put forward and see how they look to spending this money. So I encourage everyone to get on board and apply. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Makin. Councillor Hickey.
Thank you, Mayor. These changes are very minor, but they are significant, and it is a plan that really does help small business throughout the Shire. So everybody from the top to the bottom, for east and to the west, can apply for this on a one-to-one basis for up to $5,000. It's interesting that as Councillor Makin pointed out, the EV or the electric vehicle charging stations may well be a point of difference from one business to another. So that may encourage people to come and drive down whenever that is possible again to visit their business. And secondly, the new website point of sale software upgrades has made a lot of difference has made a big difference to a lot of businesses throughout the Shire. And that is certainly a good dollar for dollar investment for some businesses. So I'm very, very happy to support these changes.
Thank you, Councillor Hickey. Councillors, is there anything further? Okay, I'll put to the vote. All in favour? It's carried. Item 9.2 is the residential land review for Cobden, Camperdown, Cobden and Terang. Mr. Moyne, can I ask you to introduce this item, please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and through you, I present Council with this report on the residential land review. Housing, residential subdivision and population growth are strategic priorities in the Council plan. A residential land review has been undertaken for Camperdown, Cobden and Terang with a focus to designate these towns as residential townships and provide strategic directions to achieve this outcome. The scope of the review involved assessment and analysis of residential land supply, assessment of the residential property market, consultation with service authorities, identification of issues, barriers and constraints to housing supply, consultation with local real estate agents and developers. It is important to note that the review does not guide future land use or settlement planning outside of these townships. Residential growth needs to be addressed through upcoming strategic planning, such as the Cobden Structure Plan, which will provide a long-term land use planning framework over the next 15 years. The review is broken into three main sections, addressing residential land supply, market assessment and adequacy of supply. A key finding is that whilst each of the townships has existing residential zoned land supply, given existing constraints and development barriers, the ready supply in the three towns is at critical levels. In addition, the demand for housing is outstripping new residential lot creation, increasing market pressure and limiting the ability for towns to grow. The review presents a set of recommendations and actions for Council's implementation to assist in addressing market-ready land supply and bringing new housing to market, including planning interventions, development interventions, and advocacy, which includes advocacy through state government and with service authorities to address costs and servicing barriers to new residential development. Limited large-scale and market-ready housing supply has unintended consequences on housing affordability and attraction, population growth and retention, with a market failure occurring in the three towns. The recommendation for the review is before you.
Thank you, Mr. Moy, and certainly a very important review that's been carried out, particularly in light of the pressure that we're seeing on residential properties and vacant land in those three towns. Councillors, there's a recommendation there to adopt the residential land review. Would someone like to move that, please? Thank you, Councillor Kennedy. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Cole, thank you. Councillor Kennedy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The focus of this residential land review is on our three main residential towns, as Mr. Moyne said, and forms part of the strategic direction around our future planning for residential and development opportunities. Now, this is taking a proactive approach. We needed this review of existing planning zones, residential land supply and potential in each of Terang, Camperdown and Cobden, as part of our aim to position our townships to realise population growth and business opportunities. We have recently seen unprecedented demand for property in the local and regional markets due to COVID-19 pressures and changing attitudes in work and life arrangements. The scope of the work undertaken in the review is really quite broad and includes assessment and analysis of existing residential land supply, strategic infill areas and identification of new sites suitable for development. Targeted consultation with developers and service authorities, as well as local real estate agents who know our local market and its trends, has provided important insights. The in-depth assessments carried out in Terang, Camperdown and Cobden are absolutely vital in helping us to understand our capacity for housing supply and any constraints on development in each of these towns, and to identify what we must do to facilitate prudent residential growth. Some issues causing a barrier to development are limited subdivision and new lot supply, particularly in Terang and Cobden. Whilst there is suitable land for development in these towns, it has not been made available for that purpose. Also, the associated costs and upgrades for service and infrastructure needs, such as sewer and water, can be prohibitive. The application of the current development plan overlay is itself bringing some limitations and must be revised. There is also evidence that residential land supply limitations are also constraining growth in these towns. So we must help facilitate our needs for new residential land opportunities and development, and the very pressing requirement for market-ready residential land supply. Ultimately, the RLR contains a wealth of essential data and analysis which provide the findings to guide upcoming strategic planning. It has led to a range of key recommendations for planning and development interventions intended to leverage residential development and housing investment. And it also notes important advocacy items to state government to help remove development barriers. We can advocate for grants and funding for enabling infrastructure and fast tracking of planning scheme amendments. This body of work also links to our rural living strategy and the Key Worker Action Plan 2020 and has implications for our population growth and retention and our local economy. This is an excellent and strategically important document focused on designating Camperdown, Terang and Cobden as primary residential townships within the Shire. I'm pleased to support the adoption of this residential land review and believe there will be excellent outcomes in future residential planning resulting from this work. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kennedy. Councillor Cole, do you have anything further to add?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll just add that Councillor Kennedy summed it up very well and clearly, that the more houses we have in the town, if we're trying to attract businesses, they've got to have somewhere to stay. We create more jobs, and the youth of the community can get a job within the community without having to move away to other locations. So it's a win-win for all the towns and the areas around the towns. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cole. Councillors, anything further? Councillor Hickey.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a very, very important review. There is certainly market demand across the three major residential towns, and supply is getting to a critical supply level. And it's certainly been identified as a limiting factor within our agricultural industry, in that attracting skilled people to the region and providing houses for them when they get here is one of the more critical critical developments as far as the industry is concerned. This development will lead to economic growth, and as we have more tree changes come along to the regional COVID changes, perhaps we'll call them, for the region, and most welcome. We just need to open up our land, and this review is very important, so I encourage everybody to support it.
Thank you, Councillor Hickey. Councillors, if there's nothing further, put it to the vote. All in favour? Motion's carried. Item 9.3 relates to the COVID fee relief program, which I have declared a conflict of interest in, and I'll leave the virtual meeting and ask Councillor Kennedy to take the chair for this item, please. Thanks, Councillor Kennedy.
So I've lost my screen.
Councillor Kennedy, we can see you.
Yes, everyone, my screen went black. I'm sorry. I can see myself in the corner, and I can see you now, Mr. Mason. So actually, I might try this up here. There, now everyone's back again. Good. Thank you. So item 9.3, the COVID-19 Fee Relief Program 2021-22. Ms Lingley, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This report provides Council with a recommendation to implement a COVID-19 fee relief program for the 2021 financial year, which waives council registration and permit fees for food registered premises and accommodation businesses. This also includes businesses with local law permits for outdoor dining, A-frames, footpath trading and commercial leases that are eligible under the State Government Commercial Tenant Relief Scheme Act 2021. The COVID-19 pandemic has created one of the biggest challenges for businesses in the community to respond to in recent times. With ongoing forced business closures and changes to operations, coupled with restrictions on how the community can interact, it is essential that Council remains responsive to resident and business owner needs and challenges. The implementation of the fee relief program for 21-22 and rental lease fee and rental lease waivers will work towards achieving this goal and will provide a valuable point of contact between council officers, businesses, as each changing circumstance occurs. Subsequent to the writing of this report, regional Victoria has clearly entered another extended lockdown, and it is further proposed that Council consider adding an additional level of support for ratepayers, namely that Council not charge interest on overdue rates and charges or debtor accounts for the 2021-22 financial year, including prior year arrears. Therefore, Madam Chair, the recommendation is proposed to add an additional recommendation to replace point 2 in the officer's recommendation, namely that Council not charge interest on overdue rates and charges or debtor accounts for the 2021-22 financial year, including prior year arrears, and that recommendation 1 and the former recommendation 2 officer's recommendations stand. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Ms Lingley. Councillors, we have the alternate recommendation before us that was circulated earlier this afternoon. Could I have someone move the motion, please? Councillor Macon, thank you. And seconder? Councillor Hickey, thank you. Councillor Macon.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Chair. I don't know what to call you, sorry.
I don't know
It's a bit
either.
confusing when everyone's gone. With the latest rounds of lockdown, we feel as a council this is the least we could do to help out our community. And while there is a variety of support packages out there from us as council and the state and federal government, the aim of this COVID-19 fee relief program is to help is to recognise ongoing business disruption and challenges faced by the Shire's food and accommodation providers and other bricks and mortar businesses over the past and coming 12 months. Also, with the added motion not to charge interest on overdue rates and charges or debitors' accounts, this will make things a little bit easier. So all up, this will provide about $200,000 in fee waivers, which is great for all businesses within the Shire. I encourage all businesses to see if they are available for this. As we know, every little bit helps. But I also would like to point out there is also a hardship policy available through council. And so if anyone is going through a hard time at the moment, I suggest ringing up the council office and seeing whether you qualify for any of the policies or grants that are out there at the moment. So all businesses have a look, get on board and see what we can do for you, because every little bit helps. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Macon. Councillor Hickey, do you have anything to add?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just to say that we're delighted to be able to waiver these fees for a whole raft of businesses that are doing it tough, and certainly that last 2-hour shutdown that occurred on the weekend meant that there was a few businesses exposed when they were preparing for a busy weekend's trading. So this fee will provide some relief. As Councillor Macon said, there is a hardship clause there that the traders are able to prove a need for, and we just want everybody to know that we are supporting you in your businesses, And if you are having any trouble, please come and speak to our officers and just see what steps can be made to make your hardship just that little bit easier. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hickey. And yes, I am pleased that we are in a position that we can offer this additional assistance to our ratepayers. So certainly make contact if you need some help. So, councillors, anything further to add? Thank you. So I'll put the motion to the vote. All in favour? Carried. So we can invite Madam Mayor Strain back to the virtual room.
Thank you, Councillor Kennedy. Councillors, move to item 9.4, the membership to the Varwin Southwest Climate Alliance. Ms Lindley, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This report examines a proposal for Council to consider becoming a member of the inaugural Varwin Southwest Climate Alliance. Council officers have been involved in the establishment project, funded project through funding from the Department of Environment, Land, Water and Planning. The funded project is auspiced by the City of Warrnambool and will run until March 2022. The establishment project is at the stage of developing rules and constitutions for a possible new entity to enable the group to register for incorporation with Consumer Affairs Victoria. There are 8 established regional climate or greenhouse alliances across Victoria. However, most of those have been generated through community partnerships rather than being generated from local government alliances. Council's environment and sustainability strategy documents commitments and actions to respond to climate change, and this is one approach that we may be able to take at a regional level. There are a number of steps that are required to get to the formal establishment phase of the alliance, and as a foundation member, Council would need to consider requirements under the Local Government Act 2020, specifically sections 110 and 111 in relation to the formation of a beneficial entity. This has not yet occurred as part of the establishment project, and the recommendation before you suggests that Council delay its formal consideration of membership until after that work is completed. The officer's recommendation is before you.
Thank you, Ms Lindley. And I noticed that we've lost Councillor Vogels. He was having issues with his battery, so I'm hoping he can rejoin us soon. But in the meantime, here we go, I think. He's coming back in. Yes, welcome back, Councillor Vogels. We're dealing with the recommendation around the Varwin Southwest Climate Alliance. Is there a councillor who would like to move the recommendation as outlined by Ms Lindley? Is anybody happy to move the recommendation or an alternate? Thank you, Councillor Kennedy. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Cole. Councillor Kennedy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Corangamite Shire has made a commitment to leadership and actions to respond to climate change through our environment and sustainability strategy, and also within our council plan. So obviously we need to utilise opportunities available to investigate the best ways possible to achieve our commitments. Previously, we have had success in combining with other councils on environment-related projects, and this proposed alliance has the potential to be very useful and supportive as a way of working with other councils and organisations on projects. And it could be especially beneficial with knowledge sharing, regional progress on emissions reduction and advocating. We have been involved with the BSWCA establishment project, and we do have an officer who is a member of the project control group. So I think it's worthwhile expressing interest in moving to the foundation membership stage and having an opportunity to ensure we have input into shaping the alliance, so we can be confident in the objectives and also the legal and governance and membership structures if this alliance proceeds to incorporation. So I believe the recommendation before us is logical and prudent in my view. I did, think about this for a little while, but, I think we need to be involved in the next stage to ensure that this potential alliance will be worthwhile and useful to us. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kennedy. Councillor Cole.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think I agree, whilst I agree with Councillor Kennedy, this has been set up by the state government, my understanding, and then put to the councils to run and fund. So we need to have an interest in it to make sure that our money is going in the right directions, and we don't get derailed by other agencies and swung into a different direction. So I agree. We're better in the room listening to what's going on than out of it. So I agree. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cole. Councillors, is there any further comments, questions on this item? I'll put it to a vote. All those in favour? It's carried. Item 9.5 is the finance report at June 2021, and I'll ask Mr. David Ray, Director of Corporate and Community Services, to introduce this item, please. Thanks, Mr. Ray.
Mayor, thank you. This report informs Council of the provisional financial result for 2020-2021 and the provisional financial position as at the 30th of June of 2021. The report also seeks approval to changes to the current year adopted budget for carried forward budget items that have not been completed during the 2021 financial year. The result for the previous financial year, adjusted for carry forwards, is 3.2 million favourable to forecast, and this can be attributed to a range of issues described in the report. But simply, there was $680,000 worth of revenue higher than forecast, and there were $2.5 million of savings in expenditure. And the details of those variances are provided in the report. Councillors, given the prevailing conditions experienced and the decision of Council not to raise rates during the year, the result is very welcome. The report also proposes that Council approve carry forwards totalling $22.8 million, and they're as well are summarised in the report and the attachment. And whilst these are of significant value, the quantum is not unsurprising given the impact of COVID experienced during the year, late receipt of grants, and the carryover on large-scale multi-year projects. The impact of the carry forwards on the current year budget is not detrimental, with a forecast unrestricted cash of $10.9 million expected at 30 June 2022. And the unrestricted cash is important because it enhances Council's existing strong financial position and will provide a buffer during the year for future unexpected costs. Mayor, the recommendation is before you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ray. Councillors, there is a recommendation there for you. Councillor Vogels has gone sideways. That's better. Would someone like to move the recommendation to receive the interim financial report, note the cash results, and approve the carried forward budgets? Carried forward projects, I should say. Someone happy to move that? Thank you, Councillor Macon. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Hickey. Thank you. Councillor Macon.
Thank you, and through you, Madam Mayor, I'm more than happy to support this recommendation. I think the finance team are doing a great job, and as been flagged, there's lots of forward projects happening that's being carried forward. That's due to COVID and everything else, but the money has been allocated there, but so hopefully we can get on and get the work acquitted soon rather than later. But as we all know, COVID world, who knows what's going to happen. But no, I'd just like to thank the finance team for doing a great job and putting us in a great position that we're in at the moment. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Macon. Councillor Hickey.
Thanks, Mayor. Yes, I agree with Councillor Macon. The finance team are doing a great job. And the provisional budget for 2020 looks to a lot of the carried forward projects. The 3.2 may seem alarming to an outsider, but having gone through the projects and through the budget today, I'm very comfortable that we're well and truly on top of this. There's a number of key factors in why they haven't been completed. So it will be the endeavour to go through and to make sure they are done. I'm very happy to support this motion too.
Thank you, Councillor Hickey, and you're quite right. There is significant money being brought forward into the carry forward projects, but they are all big. Majority of them are big ticket items, and I think it goes to show the amount of pressure that particularly our Works and Services team have been under over the past 12 months, and they've certainly got a really busy 12 months ahead to deliver those projects, plus the budget that we recently adopted. Councillors, if there's nothing further, I'll put the to a vote. All in favour? That's carried. Item 9.6 is the Local Government Performance Indicators Report for the 12-month period ending 30th of June 2021. We have some provisional results, and I'll ask Mr. Ray to introduce this item, please.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. As you've described, the report presents the provisional 2021 results under the Local Government Performance Reporting Framework. This framework is a legislated system of reporting to ensure councils are measuring and reporting their performance in a consistent manner. Considering the impact of the pandemic during the year, council's performance is generally positive with respect to the service performance indicators. Some indicators have performed strongly, whereas some perform lower as expected, particularly amongst services impacted by harsh restrictions during the year. The results are generally favourable amongst financial performance and sustainability indicators, and council continues to meet its governance requirements as reflected in the governance and management checklists. And the provisional results, Madam Mayor, have also been submitted to Local Government Victoria for review, and the result is, as I said, very pleasing given the conditions, and the recommendation is before you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ray. It was just interesting having a look at the reports and seeing that, under transparent decision making, I think we only made 4 decisions in confidential items in the last 12 months, and looking at the number of building permits and planning permits that have been issued, the numbers have significantly increased, and that's what we're seeing. A lot of planning, a lot of building happening in the regions at the moment, and we continue to to get those permits out in a timely fashion. So, really good. But as you say, there are some of them, some indicators are down a little bit, but that's quite, quite acceptable considering the year that we've had. Councillors, recommendation there to note those results. Someone like to move that, please? Councillors, thank you, Councillor Kennedy. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Cole. Councillor Kennedy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, I know that this report is provisional and the results are subject to audit clearance by the Victorian Auditor General's Office. But having said that, the provisional results for the 12 months to the end of June 2021 show council's performance is generally positive with respect to service and performance indicators. Our financial performance and sustainability indicators are favourable as well, and council continues to meet governance requirements. I think this is really pleasing given the extra effort and agility that council staff have undertaken in the face of COVID restrictions and lockdowns in the last 12 months in particular. A lot of hard work has been done, and I want to thank everyone in the organisation for what they've been able to do. So I'm really pleased with what I've seen in this report, and I'm more than happy to support the recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Kennedy. Councillor Cole.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I agree with Councillor Kennedy, and in what has been particularly trying times for everyone. I think everyone's doing a wonderful job, and congratulations. If we keep going along the way we're going, it's good for the shows the organisation has a lot of resilience and adaptability, and congratulations to everyone within. So, yeah.
Yep. Terrific. Thank you, Councillor Cole. Nothing further, councillors. All those in favour? Carried. Final item on tonight's agenda, item 9.7, is the council to council staff delegation. Mr. Mason, please.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor. This is largely a procedural matter. The Act requires a review of delegations within a 12-month period of election, and so this meets that legislative requirement. The delegation to council staff has had a number of changes to reflecting recent changes in legislation, particularly Local Government Act, Food Act and the Roads Act. So the recommendation is before you.
Thank you, Mr. Mason. Councillors, recommendation, mainly procedural. Someone like to move that, please? Thank you, Councillor Macon and Councillor Vogels. Councillor Macon.
Thank you, and through you, Madam Mayor, I'm quite happy to support this recommendation. As the CEO has suggested, it's very procedural, so I think everything's going fine the way we are handling all the council to council staff delegations, so I'm more than happy to support this recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Macon. Anything further, Councillor Vogels?
No, nothing further. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillors, I'll put that to the vote. All in favour? Carried. Councillors, item 10 is other business. Is there anything that councillors would like to raise at this point? No. Open forum. Obviously, we don't have members of the public joining us in the gallery as we normally would have. I'll just ask the CEO if there's been any questions come online while we've been in our meeting. I know that there has been a submitted question submitted a couple of weeks ago. Would you like to read that, please?
Through you, Madam Mayor. Nothing online as we've been meeting, but there has been a question from Ms. Fergal Dove. The question is, will council fly the Rainbow Pride flag from the council offices on the 17th of May next year in the International Day Against Homophobia, Biphobia and Transphobia?
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mason, and I thank Ms. Thurgood Dove for her question. And just in response to that, I actually received a request the night before Ida Hobbit Day this year to have the flag flying, and unfortunately it was too late to agree to that request. I did speak to the young lady who made the request and promised that I would ask council to have a look at its flags policy, which we're going to do in the next couple of months or so, and deal with issues like this so that we can have a firm policy of flag flying. But I've tried to contact Ms. Thurgood Dove by email, and I will try again, particularly after we've reviewed the policy and that can come to a council meeting. So thank you for your question. Councillors, we now have to deal with one confidential item. So I would ask for someone to move a motion to suspend the standing orders. So the recording of the council meeting will finish now, and then we'll go into confidential items. But someone like to move a motion to suspend standing orders? Councillor Hickey, and seconded by Councillor Macon. I take a vote on that. All in favour? That's carried. So thank you to people who have been watching us online this evening. I hope you found the meeting interesting, and fingers crossed we'll be back in a normal council setting for next month's council meeting. Take care and all the very best. Thank you.